Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. And I wanted to do just a short little video on hiring people. One of my jobs as the principal of the organization is to hire people. But who am I going to hire? You know, I'm my organization, I'm a channel, and basically the people I hire are going to be people who are already, let's say, set aside from, and I just don't know who they are, but my business partner, Seth, who's a spiritual guide from the seventh dimension, he's the one who hires people. So any kind of obfuscation, somebody coming in and saying they want to be part of this, basically it isn't going to work. There 1 billion people had to be in the right time and place and frame of mind for my books to go forward. So let's say all of the obfuscation, all the lies, all the attempts to obfuscate the plan for world peace, all those things are going to fail. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, is hiring people. How will the world leaders get, on a parallel basis, how will the world leaders get to the conference in Europe? Okay, with all the lies that have been told. You know, Donald Trump, for example, I'm like I said, I've been focusing on the United States. I'm not focusing right now on the other countries, because the United States, it's like we're looking first at this part, but then the overview idea, and then the other parts will eventually, as we do the government proposals, those parts will be addressed too, those nations and all the issues related to them. So that's part of the government proposal idea. Now, coming down to the organization, it's functioning on the same level as what's happening on the international level. So I wanted to talk about how I'm hiring people. And this is what I'm working on today. I just wanted to share with you. When you have a project and you're standing on the principles, and eventually everybody will stand on the principles. Eventually everybody will go through this door to heaven on earth, basically. What will happen is you go through the getting out of the abyss classes. The first thing that happens when you start a plan, you're creating something new, you get hit by people who are let's say functioning for their own interests, the naysayers, the people who you're threatening by you're sending out ripples of effects that are bothering them. It's like coming up with a cure for the COVID-19 when that isn't based on a vaccine. What about all the people who are dependent on the vaccine and they're going, we can't have this, you know, we've invested hundreds of billions of dollars. And then it isn't until they realize that people are dying waiting for the vaccine. People's lives are affected by this. If a cure for cancer comes out, what are the oncologists going to do? But then they have to realize that having people sick isn't in anyone's best interest. So basically it's kind of like this. It's like a tipping point that has to be reached. And that's what we're looking at is, okay, so now how the world leaders will get there, it isn't because they're sitting down and to the conference in Europe. It isn't because they're sitting down and saying, this world peace is a good idea. They have to reach that tipping point where they realize that it's not in their best interest. Now, carrying this to a major conclusion, so to speak, what would happen if, let's say, Vladimir Putin wins and he's now the emperor of the planet? How's he going to function based on all these other cultures and all these other languages? And how is he, see, true power, the first packet that you go through with the getting out of the abyss classes is an overview idea, and it's where true power comes from. You're looking at, we as a world, as mankind, are looking at where true power comes from. It doesn't come from having the bigger military. It doesn't come from having more money. It doesn't come from anything else that you can equate. It comes from assuming responsibility. So if Vladimir Putin, for example, or Xi Jinping, or Donald Trump, or anybody, the U.S. president at the time, declares himself emperor of the planet, like Donald Trump has been trying to do. How can he solve problems that the average people can't solve? So we're always looking at crisis in the family and then coming up with a plan. And if the plan doesn't solve the root cause of the problem, then it makes the problem worse. So that's why the presidents, the leaders, we recommend that the future presidents, the future elected officials, always run for office based on coming up with plans and based on solving problems successfully. Okay, that's one of our projects in the future is solving problems. So basically, I need somebody. Who am I going to? Let's say that all these people have reached, who are lying, cheating, stealing, creating mayhem, have reached the tipping point where they realize that they can't get their life by creating mayhem. They can't get their life by lying. They can't get their life by cheating. They can't get their life. I don't have to be smart. I don't have to be anything. All I have to do is function from within my own capacity as a psychic. So my guides know who all those other people are. If they come up and they say, hey, I want a job and I'm going to work from within and take over your organization, it won't work because they're not going to get accepted. So this is my Help Wanted board is really important. So the first packet of information is, where does true power come from, and are you making your choices right? You're working. Are you yourself standing on the principles of creating a project so that you can get out of your abyss? That's the whole idea. Is you had an idea, you went into the abyss, your plan might have failed, or you're doing what's in everyone's best interest, and you got smacked by the boogeyman in the first part of the planning process. And then now you're using that overview packet to the power packet, basically, to get yourself your power back and build yourself. It's like going to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're an alcoholic, you've gone down and you're working right back up out of the crisis. Okay, although it's kind of the same whether you're an alcoholic or starting the organization for world peace, because whenever you come up with something new, you get smacked by the naysayers, by the opposition, and they start fighting harder and harder all the time. So let's say that I have a bunch of naysayers who come. They're not going to get anybody who's ripping life apart for other people, ripping them apart, creating mayhem, are not going to get invited to participate in the organization, or world leaders who are ready to go and say, I'm taking over the world. This group here doesn't have any power. We're taking over here. We're going to do it, kind of like what's happening in the Republican Party right now. That is not going to work. So now this is the idea. These cards, the second, not the cards yet. The second one is the planning packet, and that has to do with coming up with a plan. But this is the third packet, and this is kind of like, then you kind of find a balance, and then the third packet has to do with bringing in the people. So how do I bring in the people? If all of a sudden everything is tipped, so the people who are causing problems, if Vladimir Putin takes over the world, how is he going to solve the problems in Argentina, all over, the world, the islands? They have to solve their own problems. They have to be responsible, but then everybody has to work together and then share resources based on the principles of the cooperation of nature, making win-win agreements rather than waging war to steal somebody's natural resources or their location. So wars are gone. The disputes will be settled in court, kind of like the way it is in the United States, settled in court. And if somebody is grabbing for power, it won't work anymore because they can't get themselves out of their crisis. The planning packet, it takes the idea of the plan and the principles of creating a plan. The third packet has to do, we're now in the technology packet. And I've used some of this information, the light source invention, I've talked about this lots of times about the ripples of effects. But one interesting card here, and this is what can I do, the getting out of the abyss classes. And these are what you start to follow. We're looking at technology review, the free power source invention. This is something that the technology people are really interested in, the intuitive computer idea. And that's what you're using in the first packet, is the intuitive computer idea. So we're looking at 3 inventions that'll work together, and those will address the idea of like Iran using their nuclear power for weapons or for peaceful purposes. So this is my card. I have gone through these packets and I've applied them in my own life. I'm working to get out of the abyss. I have a plan. I've been working on that. And the technology packet is, I've been talking about this and teaching about this. And now what it is I'm just about ready to put my card up here. So in the organization, what it is that it's, let's say, a large pool of people, just like the world leaders. If the world leaders refuse to sit down and work together because they're grabbing for power and they're getting revenge and creating mayhem and starting wars and kicking mankind backwards in our evolution and all sorts of mayhem that is so oppressive to everybody, nobody's going to work with them. Nobody can work together. So it's the people who have to start working together. And the perverse people to come in are the psychics, the channels, the people who went to the prayer circles, and then now they're starting. So what I need, what's on my list right now, is somebody to help me start the nonprofit organization, basically to create that second level idea of assuming responsibility for the next idea, and then the channels to work at the crisis center. And each one of these ideas is I dropped my tag. But then what I'm going to do is put this on the board and then hang this in the crisis center once we start the crisis center. Because everybody's in crisis. The games have collapsed. People are in the abyss. They don't know how to get out of it. There are no ways to get out of some of the things that people have done. Basically, this is the board, and pretty soon everybody comes in who goes through that top row will put a card up like this when they go through this technology idea. Technology is like the plan, application of the plan. And we're starting to, that's how you start to bring in people like your flower of life pattern. So the rule is in our organization, and on a parallel basis, if a world leader is willing to come and be part of this, willing to share their talents and gifts, then that allows their children, or an independent member, anybody comes in and wants to join, then their children automatically are ready to come in. But that allows the children, to bring in the other parent. So let's say that the mom and dad are fighting, and the child, which one is the child going to choose? The one that has a job available for them. And then instead of the child being responsible, what has to happen is this. They have to be able to fill a position. So let's say that somebody is functioning for his or her own interests. There just won't be any jobs available for them. And they'll just stay part of the pool of people who are available. Their parents will bring them in. But then at the same time, everybody is going to be looking at the same idea about how revenge works and why it doesn't work. We're going through, people have learned on an individual basis, but now we're all going to be learning step by step this big pool of information. Some people will be part of that idea and they'll keep going down. A really good example of this idea is a book that was written by actually two books that were written by James Redfield called the Celestine Prophecy. This is actually the application of the Celestine Prophecy. And you can see how people would resist it, a new idea that's going to revolutionize mankind, a new idea that's going to lead to our ascension. So if you are interested, if you ever read that book, it was popular like in the 80s and the 90s, I think, maybe a little bit later than that, 2000. It's still a book that people read. In fact, I saw the movie of it. They even made a movie of that book. Watch the Celestine Prophecy and figure out where you fit. Are you going to be part of the group that's going to be spiraling down into each of the ideas? Are you going to be the person who meets it at the final end? Are you going to be one of the people who's going to try to stop it? Where do you fit? Eventually, everybody will go through and be called and go through and reach the point where they make their ascension. Everybody will eventually, when they stand on the principles, when they're ready to hear it. But the people who are not ready to listen, so they're not going to do it. It has to be where they make that tipping point where they start to realize that this is actually good for mankind and it's not, the old structure isn't working. So this is where it works out. If the world leaders, if one of my independent members comes in and joins, then the children automatically are eligible, and then they can bring in the other parent. If it's the other parent who's basically creating mayhem that comes in and says, I want to be part of this, basically the child can come in, and then they have to be willing to share their talents and gifts as part of the global renaissance. Then they can bring in the other parent. But they just will be part of the pool, and it will be Seth and God and the spiritual hierarchy who decides who comes in. And everybody else will just follow along with this path idea. So if they come in with the idea that they're going to smash it and they're going to do it, basically it won't work anymore. So if you are interested in finding out how this works and how to apply that, watch the Celestine Prophecy or read the book by James Redfield. It's a very interesting book, and it kind of tells you where we are right now. If the kids come in, if any of the young people come in, I'm not their mom, I'm not their dad, I'm not going to be a surrogate parent for them. Basically, the job that I have is to help end the conflict in the family. I'm not functioning as an American. I'm focused on the American, the United States right now, but eventually we'll all be considered also citizens of the planet. We're going to be citizens of the international government, and then that'll allow our own countries to function on a higher level too as things change. People will be able to leave if their governments are oppressive. So I just wanted to share with you that because there's some young people in our group that would like to come and pick up applications and take them back, and they have to decide. This kind of takes the burden off of them. If their parents are trying really hard to control this because they've reached that tipping point. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you. Like, share, and subscribe, because the same crises occur in the family and on the international level and on the national level. And we can start solving problems on every level, but just by looking at and seeing how the spiritual hierarchy is functioning to help us all function on a higher level. How to all reach heaven on earth. Thanks. Like, share, and subscribe.